Her older auntie wanted badness, and the whole neighborhood wanted a story. People always wanted a story, and if one did not excited, they but one from small looks and broken woods. Denise had learned this early in small towns. People watched each other like the sea watched the shore, always returning, always touching the same place again. That evening, her father came come home later than usual. He took off his jacket slowly and sat at the table without saying anything. Her mother placed tea in front of him and waited. Tina stayed near the kitchen door, pretending to the fixed blow of fruit. When the counter she now there was some time he wanted to say he had that face, the one that looked hard before hard news come. Finally he lifted his eyes and looked directly at her. Tomorrow evening, he said, some guests are coming. Her mother leveled her gaze. Denise already understood why she asked, thought the answer was clear. Her father's voice remained fast because it is time. Time that would again in their home. Time did not mean clocks or days. It meant pressure, that meant expectations. It meant a girl could not stay only a girl for too long. It meant people had begun to ask questions, and questions had to be answered with discussion. Denise felt her thought, then she wanted to speak strongly, but the old fear came first. I am not ready, she said. Her auntie, who had been shilling peace near the doorway, let out a dry laughing. Girls are never ready, then life touched them. Denise turned to her. Maybe life is tried to teaching only girls. The room was still. Her father handed table once. Not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to remind everyone who had power. That is Anyug, he said. Denise did not cry. She had promised herself. She stopped crying in front of them. The tears made them believe she was weak. Silence made them think she agreed. Speaking made them angry. There was no safe place, so she nodded once and walked to her room, crying all her unsaid words with her. Her room was small but neat. The bed stood against the wall. A window she shelf above it holding at a few books, some folded letters and smooth white shell she had found years ago by the sea. Whenever she felt trapped, she held that shell in her hand and listened to the hollow sound inside. It is a child. She believed the sea lived there. Now it was only impact space. Still, sometimes impact space was the closest thing to comfort. She sat on the bed and thought about the guest who had come tomorrow. She knew what that meant. A family would arrive, the would smile, the mother would look at the greatness, the future, the way tea was served, the son would parents not to study, thought he would examine everything. They would ask Denise a few questions, not because they wanted to know her, but because they wanted to measure how easily she could fit into a new house. Could she cook? Was she claimed? Did she know how to respect elders? Was she modest? No one would ask what made her laughing, what frightened her at time, or what kind of future she imagined when she stood by the sea and let the wind push her back. A soft knock came at the door. Her mother entered without waiting. You should not speak to your father like that, she said quietly. Denise looked at her for a long moment. And who should I speak like? Someone who is happy. Her mother sat beside her in the dim light. She looked older than her years. This was sometime Denise noticed more and more lately. Worry had shaped her mother's face like water shapes stone. I know this is hard, her mother said, but life is not made from what we want only. Whose life denies asked mean or years? He mother do not answer at once, both, she said finally. That was the tragedy of mothers and daughters. Denies thought one suffered and called it love, the other suffered and was told it was duty. I had dreams too, her mother continued, almost a whisper. Then life became different. Denies eyes softened for a second, but only for a second, and because your life become different, mean also has to become small. Her mother stood up, then heart flashing across her face. You think I am enemy? She said. No, Denies replied. I think you were hurt so much that now you call pain normal. Her mother left without another word. The next morning arrived too quickly. The house was clean again. Evan thought the was already clean. Fresh cover were placed on the chairs, dries or polished. Her auntie moved through the rooms like a commander before battle. Denies were the pale blue dress her mother chose for her. It was beautiful in a way that made her sad. It looked like the kind of dress made for someone began offered, not someone living fairly by afternoon. The clouds thinked over the town, the small of rain, different in from the sea. Then I stood in the yard for a moment and breathed deeply as if she could feel herself with a new art to survey the evening. That was when she heard a voice from behind the gate. You look like someone waiting for a storm. He turned it. It was Aris. He had now her shyness childhood thought the distance between them years. Sometimes they were close, sometimes life pulled them apart. He had left the town for work and returned months ago, later quieter and crying sometime under able in his eyes. Who is not handsome in the polished way of a mother admired. He looked real, window touched, sun browned, thoughtful. There was sometime unfinished about him, and maybe that was who denies trusted him for than most people. There is a one, she said. He studied her face. What happened? They are coming tonight, he understood immediately. His jaw knit. And they do you want? He asked. She almost laughed, but there was no joy in it. Whitning was nothing it to do it with it. It should in this house. It does not. Arise stepped closer to the gate, then say no. She looked at him with tried eyes. Do you think I haven't thought of that? Yes, I said, but thinking and doing are not the same. He was stunning because the weird true denies turned away for a moment. The sky drinked more. You speak easily, she said. You are a man. When you say no, people call you stubborn. When I say no, they call me shameful. Our eyes did not answer right away. Then he said softly, maybe, but if you live by their fear, you will wake up one day and not know where you needed, and they began. She salved hard. He always did his. He said the nothing she did not want to hear because it was the thing close to death. Before the she could reply, her auntie's voice come from inside the house. Denies. She stopped back from the gate. I have to go, she said. Her eyes held her gaze off. You need anything, call me. She gave a small nod. Thought both of them knew asking for a help was not easy in a place where every action grew into remover. That evening, the guests arrived just before sunset. The family came with careful smile and wrapped sweets. The mother wore too much perfume The father spoke in a voice meant to sound journey's. The son Hakan was dressed, designed, denied with polite interest, who was not Rudy. Adal almost mad it was if he had been openly, curely rejecting the whole idea would have been easily incited. He was ordinary, which meant everyone would call him a good choice. Tea was proud. Small conversation began the weather walk, relatives, rising price. Then the real subject appeared beneath all the harmless ones like a nif undercloth. Hakan mother smiled at denies your daughter seems quiet. Her auntie answered before anyone else could. She is modest. She knows her place. Rena's field had rise in the face. Hakan turned to her. Do you like leaving her? It was probably the first honest questions anyone had asked her all day. She looked it at him and saw that he meant will, but she still did not understand that he was part of a machine already moving around her. Sometimes he said, and other times he asked, other times I feel Sia is kinder than people. The room filled small, silent for a moment. Hakan looked surprised, then almost amused, as if he had discovered that the girl in the blue dress had a mind after all. His mother smiled too quickly. Boutique girls bring life into a home. Renais wanted to say only if the home allows them to lie, but she stayed quiet. Later tradition did not, it always did. The older people found was to leave the young pair alone for a few minutes in the dining room. The door was not fully shut, only half closed because privacy was allowed only in careful amounts. Hakan sat across from her and cleared his throat. You seem uncomfortable, he said. I am. At last you are honest. She looked at him directly. Would you like honest? He nodded. I do not want to marry a stranger because other people are nervous about time. To his credit, he did not act offended. He leaned back and looked down at his hands. I was told you were shy. He said, I am tried. She replied, that is different. He gave a quiet smile, but it faded fast. This is not exactly my dream either. That surprised her. He counted my mother think I need a wife. My father thinks I home become respectable when I mean still down. I came because refusing them every week is another kind of battle. For the first time that evening denies felt the strange comfort of being understood even by the wrong person. So we are both her to make other people comfortable, she said. Looks like it. They sat in the silence a moment. Then Hakan speak again, more gently. I will not force anything. If they ask, I will say we should wait. Denies exhaled solemnly. Thank you. When the guest finally left, the house did not relax. It tightened. Her auntie immediately began listening the family's good qualities. Her mother said Hakan seemed decent. Her father said little, which meant he approved. Any Yug denies listened until she would not anymore. I said no, she said. Her auntie clicked her tongue. You met him for 10 minutes. That was enough for me to know I do not want this. Her father stood. What exactly do you want? The question echoed through the room. It sounded simple, but it held ears inside the. Denise answered what a trembling voice that became stronger as she continued. I want my life to belong to me. I want to choose. I want when I marry. If I marry, I want to speak up in a house where every breath is not brought from someone else's permission. I want to be asked what I feel before I am handed to a stranger like a duty wrapped in a blue cloth. Her mother eyes filled with tears. Her auntie whispered good protects us. But her father only stared at her, and the disappointment on his face was colder than angry. You speak as if you are jealous, he said. Denies answer come before fear could not stop it. Then stopped building bears. His hand rosy for a moment. She thought that he would stick here. He did not, but the raised hand alone changed some time forever. He loved it slowly, breathing hard. Go to your room, he said. She did not move. Go. She went crying, the sound of her own. She went crying to sound of her own heart like a dream in her chest. That night the run finally came. It hit the windows hard as if the sky itself. As he, the sky itself, had run out of patience, Denise sit on the floor beside her bed and listened. She did not know what would happen next, but sometime had cracked open, maybe in the family, maybe in her, maybe in both. A little after midnight, she heard a soft tap on the window. Startled, she stood and pulled the curtain aside. Aris was outside under the rain, shelter near the wall, shocked from the shoulders down. She opened the window lightly. What are you doing here? I say the guests leave, he said. Then I say your father in the street. Later he looked forced. Denise let out a breath that almost became a laughing. You come in the rain to confirm I am miserable. I came because I thought you might be alone. Sometime in her chest arched at those wood alone. Yes, even in a full house. Yes. I told them no, she said, and I know everything is rose. Arise looked at her for a long moment, thought the rain drank her eye, or maybe knew everything is finally true. She did not. She did not answer. He fingers tightened on the window frame. Come with me tomorrow morning, he said. What? To the harbor, just for a few hours before town wakes up properly. You need to breathe. Somewhere their voice cannot reach. Cannot reach. She should have said no. Good girls did not slip out of dawn to meet me by the sea. Good girls stayed inside and learned how to shrinking, but she was trying to being good in ways that raised here. Fine, she whispered. He nodded no once at sunrise, then disappeared into the rain. Denise closed the window and sat back on the floor. For the first time in months, fear was not the only thing she felt. Sometime Elise had entered the room with the storm. It was small, uncreated, and dangerous hope. At dawn, the rain had stopped, leaving the wood washed and silver denies, wrapped a shawl around herself and slipped quietly through the back door. The tune still slept. The streets were wet and the air smelled of salt and earth. When she reached the harbour, Aris was already there beside a small boat, hands in his coat pockets, watching the horizon where the sky slowly opened into play gold. You came, he said. She gave him a look. You sound surprised. I have learned not to accept coverage from people who have been punished for it all their lives. They walked along the edge of the water, fresh men in the distance were preparing needs. Ghouls cried overhead. The sea moved with deep, patient strength. This place, Denies said softly, always makes me feel like life could be bigger. It is bigger, Arise replied, just not from inside those walls. She stopped walk and what do you suggest I do? Run away, start where with what people talk as if freedom is a door. It is not. It is cost money, space, protection mean can wonder and call it life. Women wonder and become wrongs. Arise looked at her, not with pity but with respect. I know I am not saving it is easy. I am saving your life should not be decided by fear before it even begins. She watched the water. Sometimes I think I am drowned in a place with no sea. I was quiet for a moment, then said, then did not drown. She gave him a tired smile. You always make impossible things sound simple, and you make simple truths sound impossible. They keep it walking for a while. Neither spoke. It was new to be beside someone who had not demanded an answer from her. Finally, Aris said, I got an offer. She looked at him for work. He nodded. In the city win in a few weeks. The words in landed heavily. She had now, of course, that he would not remind her favor mean like him either left or become bitter. But now sometime and hearing it were different things. That is good, she said, though I thought it did not feel good. I could be. She heard the hesitation in his voice. What does that mean? He meant her eyes. It means some things are easier to leave than others. Her breath catched. The array between them changed, not fully, not openly, but Anyug for silence to become charged, Anyug for every shared memory, science, childhood to seem suddenly present. Before either of them could say more, a flamer voice catched cut through he morning denies. She turned surprisingly. Her cousin E stood a short distance away, shock written across her face. She had likely come down to the shore early to buy fish for breakfast and had found inside a secret the tone would fast on. Denied stepped back at once. It's not what you think, she said, though she already hated the weakness of that stance. She give a better little life. And you happen to be the heir. Denies felt pans rise not because she had put down something unforgivable, but because she knew how little truth mattered. Once a story specked into the town. Please, she said, do not make this into something ugly. ACE face softened for half a second, then hardened again. I do not have to make it anything. People will do that themselves. She walked away. Denise felt the ground tilt under her. It's our, she whispered. Aris stepped toward her. No, do you not understand? By now, this will be everywhere. Then let it be everywhere, he said, angry and turning his voice. Now, why should your life be distorted because you walked by the sea? Because this place is not fear. Her eyes filled, but she blackened. The trees back. Aris looked helpless for the first time. I am sorry, he said. She shook her head. This is not your fault. This town has been waiting for a reason to slowly me. By the time Denise returned home, the house was already awake and the atmosphere felt wrong. Auntie's face was pale with outrage. Her mother looked as if she had not yet decided whether to defend or condemn. Her father stood in the middle of the room with the terrible silence of a man holding rage too tightly. Where are you? He asked. Denise sighed nothing. Her auntie answered for her at the harbor with Aris alone. The woods feel like stones. Her father took one step forward. Is this true? Denise looked at him and saw that whatever she said now, the judgment had already happened. Yes, she said. Her mother covered her mouth. Her auntie began speaking repeatedly about shame, respect, and running names. Her father's face changed into sometimes Denise had never seen before, not just angry, but betrayal. You have discovered this house, he said. No, Denise replied, voice shaking but clear. This house was describing me long before today. She slept come before anyone could stop it. Dina stretched slowly. Her cheek burned. Art pain inside was deeper and colder. For several seconds, one man spoke. Then she said the coldest stance she had ever spoken, and it yet carried more force than any scream. I am leaving. Her mother resumed to her. No, do not say that. The old Christian schools under the burned textile marketing was once a shelter, then a shortage, wheeled, then a remover. By down it had become a battlefield without gunfire. The night where every silence is sentry and every shadow is either a witness or knife. Aris entered through a broken loading put two streets from the market. Ran is using a distance route only maintenance carriers used before the fire. 20 years earlier, the air blew smells of wheat, small limits, stone, old smoke, and iron-rich water. When his flashlight shifts over the chamber. His shares backboards, mounted agents, Ottoman brick, rusted discs, treason driving, curling on walls, and blankets stretched in a corner beside crates of turned food. Somebody turned abandonment into refuge down her, which means somebody organized people, no one above wanting to count. He levers the beam when he hears movement, not pains. Discipline a body sleeps from behind a pillar, then another there tan grass with impressive weapons fan out along the perimeter, not attacking, just closing. Exact. Finally, Leila stepped into the palace, spill of light from a maintenance event, pistol low at her side. You come alone, she says. That means either you are stopped or you are starting to doubt them. Aris studies the room. He's where you hide. No one, she says. She is where people thrive. Will mean upstairs decide whether their distress deserves causing one of the boys matters. Kick him out. Leila raises a hand and the falls silent. Aris noticed they listened to her without questions. You brought Hamza to Krekia, she says. That was an accident. He followed. Iris replies, and somebody informed him faster than I could move. You want me to believe you are the one being watched? There is compoundment in the question, but not carried. Aris took the folded page from his coat and held it up without stepping closer. My father wrote wrote this. Leila's eyes flashed to it, then back to his face. Where did you get that? Where you left it? He watched her carefully talk. Leila circles him the way people circles dangerous animals and broken brides, with caution and with curiosity about where the street points truly are. Your father was not the first engineer, neither used to say that at last, but he was the first one who refused to sign off on the reclassifications. Aris feels the old angels rise hot and passes reclassifications of what she lets she silence sharpen him under Krakia and the customers quarter there are died branch from the original freight tunnel network of it became unstable after folding unfortunately it was reinforced wooden and connected to private service ships used by Shell champions with mechanical contracts. Shambling routes, Aris says. Not just that, Leila nods towards Shival, where someone has pinned copied maps and handwritten notes. He stopped closer than there are our lies in their links. Utility plans mixed with private constructions, pyramids, dates, Intel's truck schedules, accident report, and name connected by read thread. The board looks less like research and move like a body opened by someone who still believes organize can explain a person neither used in futures tenders the bullet a second logistic network under the city. Leila says weapons, synthetic drugs, trafficked labor, stolen art, cash, anything that needed to move without customs, cameras, or convenience. Aris follows a route line with his eyes and sees it interact near the exact point where his father died. He found it. He found an nuke to stop the flash safety certifications. Layla voice turns harder so they call passed the line and called it age. One of the younger girls in the room looks away at that as if she has heard it before and still cannot stand hearing it again. Aris stand in front of the maps for a long moment. Every instant in him want to reject the simplicity of it because graph can survey uncertainty better than carrot uncarrot leaves room for fate. Carrot leaves only murder. Who do you know any of his? He asked. Leila points to the red ladder now lying on a desk, wrapped in clear plastic agents the damp because neither Namin or Grady and Grady man documents what the think they'll one day blackmail each other with. The ledger has shipments, bribes, route codes, intels. The drive has parameters, security overrides, and audio records. Else look at here and you stole it alone. No one service down her alone. She nods toward the boys and girls round to chamber. But is that my mother died in a followed the city called unforeseeable. The pump session badge had been driven twist the district poetration windshield when I started digging. Every road led to the same group of champions, the same signatures, the same names. Another deputy mayor Tansel contract who got rich building repairs for stairs. They helped create her mouth twist with controlled fury. The city is not falling, it is being managed into colpis that stands lands heavier than the maps because system fail from neglect, but they can also fail from designed Aris now that better than anyone. He has his father in memory, saving what they do not maintain become leverage later. He had to thought that was confusion. Maybe it was wrong. One of the boys rushes informed the side colder than breathless shoes, slipping with stone, shocked on the upper ladders. He says two groups one from the market side, one from the tram line. Leila turns immediately. Who many at last? Eight above, maybe more in reserve. Aris says Hamza sells before he probes. Another thinks you are in the sector but not in this room yet. Hell, he now soon. Leila looks to the others, pick the dairy crates, burn the duplicate maps, move the children through the school, drain the routine. The room comes alive at once. Blankets vanish into bags, paper into metal binds, hands perplexed at feeling. Harris cheats sight of a boy no more than 10 tying his sister sacrificed her under her chin as though catching a hideout is ordinary. That more than the VPNs tells him what kind of city he serves. Leila turns to him. He should leave, not without the ledger. Her explanations says she accepted that answer. Still others in her need boy. No, Aris says, but if his awareness stay in one place, it dies with whoever finds it. I need to know what on the drive. She shakes her head. And then what you took it? Your brother who hands it the chain of comedy owned by the same mean name it inside. You take it. The presses and half the reporters get bought, will the other half get buried under injections? There is no clean door out of his. Aris says quality. There never was. That does not mean we stay underground forever. For the first time, a crack appears in his gradient to no trust considerations. They move through the lower tunnel system in a line light only by shielded lamps, children and Korea's first fighter last. Aris walks beside Leila while water trick from ceiling Sam's above them through concert. The until shift the city weeks, buses, shutters, market stalls, men crossing traffic, women opening show fronts, 1,000 ordinary sound muffled into a distant pressure. Why tell me now? Aris asks. Ella keeps her eyes ahead because if we are not supposed, the took shocked when I said Kemal Yelni's name. Meaning, if you did already know the truth, you do have reached for me differently. She glanced at him. You were angry at them before you were angry at me. He says nothing. She continues, and because your father left sometime lies not in the official papers in maintenance marriage, and he wrote a press. I spent 6 months trying to discard. She reaches into the coat and hands him a copied in pencil. If wallet breaths the city down for a blue airy stop walking. Where did you find this? Secondary storage inventory hand inside a crowded pump manual. Violet he respects. He used that wood for large pressure chambers. The engineering part of his mind beings moving ahead of him, assembling dimensions, water temples, old civic place. There was an outman custom complex under the customs quarter. He said slowly. Most of it was mapped then partly fell during the first metro expeditions of if someone recoordinated the died fight branch to the old village network. Then they have controlled our hidden volumes are large and you to move anything Leila says or to follow anything they look at each other in the dim tunnel and for one dangerous second both understood the same conclusion. Other operations is not just hiding under the city, it is right into the city structural and hydraulic heart. The Amerige in a maintenance chamber beneath and beyond cinema and the Kunovi began separating into smaller cells. Leila ordered two fighters, the escort the children wished. Another pair tasked to deplect duplicate drive cops toward a church basement safe room. Harris cheats the detail immediately. Copies she gives him, then smile. Did you think I stole one drive and trusted one pocket? He almost smiles back, almost. The moment dies when the chamber light out, cut out. Absolutely dark. Slow was the room. A chilled gaseous metal scrapes somewhere above. Aris drive his pistol by instinct and listen. Not random outage, breaker interruptions planned. Then comes the first flash being through a violation hatch. White light and thunder in a confined space. Children scream. Fighters drop low. Leila shoots eyes down. Aris turns his face into his sleeve. A forcation too late. Aris running as smoke filled the chamber. Then the shooting start from two levels at once. Neither's mean did not merely follow the now the fallback point. Choose underground is different from choose Anna Street. It has nowhere to dissipate. Gain fear multiplies through each order sound like threats. A single stumble can tramp people against a wall. Aris sees one of Leila boys go down, clutching his shoulder. See a hatch panel blue inward. She is there, masked mean, dropping through with surprised careless meant for killing in crammed angels. He fires TVs and attacker shifting into the ladder from another call fishing called the hatching life. Leila moves like she has rehearsed lost after drying. Children throw a crow lap space wheel covering with the one hand left drying. She shoots. Aris grabs a steel table and flips it into a barricade. Bullets punch speak from the ledge, smoke thickening somewhere in the dark. A familiar voice yells, Aris, stand down. Hamza, of course. Hamza always prefers capture when it perserves options. Reshoot is back. All of your dogs Then give me the girl and the ledger. Hamza voice is closer than it should be. He is inside the room's perimeter. Aris risks a glance through smoke and sees him advancing with fear man face. Grime not gleeful that hurts in a way. Treachery from strangers never does. Hamza trained him how to move in the tunnels, how to listen for rebounding footsteps, how to count loaded breath before a mean. Prince Hamza once cried him home bleeding after a neighborhood fight when his father was still alive. Now he comes has another's hand. Leila sees Aris hits and mistakes it for surrounded. Move or die with them. She snaps. The insult wakes him. He fares at the hour he'd peep in connections instead of at Hamza reporting a pressurized line stream exploded across the chamber building both sides long and used for Layla's group to plunge into the side drain. The curl through break through passages slick the manel smile half bent half cooking behind them vice scatter both when someone screams for the stream boring then a gun shoot ends it at last the curval space spills into some chamber where still water lamps around their nickels once child is sobbing silently. Ares is crying the wounded boy is white with both arms though he can barely manage his own. Aris cheeks the rear then turns on Layla. He had the fallback route in advance. He says, not just the distracted the room. Yes, she answered coldly. That what Bradley feels like we need to arise one time. I am telling you, Hamza, now before I entered the school, and I am telling you are someone on my side. Taketoshi kneels by the wounded boy, tears open his sleeve and picks the shoulder window with Guza. Her hands are steady. The difference is I already accepted that Harris watches her work then we use the school because sometimes we let the hunters reach the wrong meat first. She gestures with her chin toward a statue. One of the girl carries the diplocate maps the wonder altered the chamber they think matter most has been impact for weeks. Harris lets out a breath that is almost admiration. Your blood decoys, I blood survey. She looks up at him. Can you still do that or did they train it out of you? The regroup hours later in the basement of a directly bathhouse whose upper rooms host a legal and legal antique shop by day and a legal sugary by night. The old beekeeper, elder woman, everyone calls me never Anna cleans bowl from the floor with the claim of someone too old the impressed by violence. Her hair is white and bound back, her shoulders narrow, her gaze incredibly clear. She nods once when Aris enters with Leila. Camel's boy, she said, you finally come where your father told you never to come unless the city started speaking in cracks. Aris tears. You know him, I know his conscience. She presses cloth into the winter boy hand and gestures for any assistant to stitch. Sit. Aris does not sit. My father told me nothing because a man, what a family hides the size of danger till he cannot. She points to a bench. Anyone. Your father was brewing me copies, wrote stackage, primary animals' names. She did not trust. He thought if anything happened to him, I would know who to hand them to. Aris cheats, tightness, and did he man ever Anna studies him with almost cruel patience. No, because he died before he decided whether herding them to anyone would save the city or merely tell the wolves which get the use. Leila says quietly, there are more papers there where the old woman replies, some burned, some were bought, some were taken by men who now wear suits on television, but one thing remained hidden because nobody understood what it pointed to. She left a wrapped metal calendar from under the bench and placed it on the table. Inside is an old survey scroll, brittle but preserved. Aris unrolls it carefully and sees a subtexture diagram beneath the cosmetic quarters older than modern records, showing a deep pressure wallet connected to our flow chambers and later intersected by utility pro upgrades in the margin. Is his father is not in darker in ink. They do not want passage, they want controlled fuller. Controlled fuller, the press follows Iris like a siren all afternoon. Not accidentally cloppers, not more counseling in future designed or manipulated to break on comedy in ways that create profit, panic, clearness zones, emergency contracts, displaced resideness, acid evidence. Leila lays out what she has picked together. Nader's companions recover districts, blocks above vulnerable lines. Prime still maintains minor Ford lover values, shelf rounds by properties the through proxies. Then when I disturbed his breath means circulars, colors, the city awards recognitions to the same network. Smuggling routes hidden beneath allows stock pills, transport and disposal. He's making money on the wound and the bench. Aris says, and the funeral whenever Anna replies, Yusuf should see this. Aris thinks instantly and just as instantly knows the danger of that thought. Leila re- reads it anyhow. You won't go to your brother. He is one of the few honest one left. That may be true, she says, but honesty without protection is just myth. Before Aris can answer, his phone vibrate. Unknown number. He lets it ring. One twist, then answers without speaking. Yusuf's voice comes through, standing low. Wrong. Abhi lands near the phone, followed by a muffled groan. Then another voice, carefully and polished, said, bearing the ledger, the old tramp, tipped by Shendown, and your brother contends having a future. The line clicks died for one brief moment. All sound in the bathhouse disappear for as his mind narrows to a single hard point. Lila is on her feet, already tramp. She says, "Ab- absolutely," he answers. Whenever Anna closes the survey scroll, that took the brother because they could not trust the son. Aris checks the magazine in his pistol, then another in his coat, then reach for the ledger. Leila catches his wrist. If you walk in there crying everything, another wins. Twist if do not walk in, Yusuf dies maybe. She says our maybe. He dies the second you arrive because hostage are for timing, not Mariki. Alice leans close, voice low and dangerous. He's not some theory on your board. Her face hardness in equally measure, and this city is not just for your family. Grieve. The room freezes around them. Then, whenever Anna sleeps, the tumble once shape and you do shame both children. She said, thou neither is one. He will go, you will not let him go alone, and no one gives neither the full truth. She turns to one of her assistants, paper the archive chippers to another sand word through the boiler roots. Every old work who still was Kamala align. Favor gets called as looks at her. Why help me now? The old woman meets his eyes. Because your father died trying to stop a man from turning the city into a mechanic that its poor first, and because if another has started talking honest policeman has cult cultural, then he's not protecting business anymore. He's preparing an end game. Eric steps outside the bathhouse into a alley where evening has begun to fold itself over the district in violet smoke and distance shines the antique shops. Shutters are half closed above. Somewhere and nearby men are prying in a small masque squeezed between warehouses. Somewhere Eliza truck is backing over cobblestones. It is reverse alarm absurdly cheerful. Ordinary life keeps moving even while the underside sharpens its knives. Leila comes out behind him, crying a confused case and tosses him a bunner phone. Your is this not yours? Hamza can probably hear your heartbeat by now. Aris pockets it. Why are you still here? She gives him a look, almost offended by the question, because if neither is forcing this move now, he's either disparate or close to whatever pass comes next. I want to see which, and if it kills you. She glanced toward the strat where rain began again in the light silver sheet. Then at last I won't died, wondering whenever I stopped one floor shoot of the truth. He watched her for a second, his woman who grieve from fault, damage and flies and fear into something sharp and used to cancelling into challenge man who won ministers. Then he says, if we get yourself out, you follow my lead for 30 minutes. Why? Because I know the deep put gomtree. Her mouth curves finally. There's the engineer. There never stopped being one, he says. The answer surprises them both. Across the street, her dream built like from a line, still functioning above a city that does not yet know how close its foundations are to betrayal. Aristrates walk into the rain. Leila falls in beside him, believe their feet beneath stone and real and silver and forgotten break yelty words like a hard breath. The old tramp depot had once been a place of stools, grasses, spark and timetables pinned to walls by men who believed movement could be cultivated. Another had turned it into a treasure. Aris now the building from years before will light made carry was still uninspected. The foundations, voilets and agreed over cracked spots with the maintenance pies. Now the surface hull was stripped and polished, half a museum, half fortress. Resorted dam cars sat like relaxed under hanging lamps. The high windows were flamed dark. The central pit where machines once worked beneath the undercarriages had been covered with steel plates that would be lifted or dropped remotely. Every line of sight was international. Every interest was homed. Harris parked there straight away and approached on foot through grain that turned the royal eyes into black veins. Leila shied would him from too objective side of the any view undistinguishable from the other marble until the vanished into a survey line. 2 blocks back, Mune ever in a people took positions in delivery allies, silver mouths, rooftop, par papered and power books. No of them accepted a clean rescue. The best the hoped for was confusion, long and you to stay alive. Back from a man who passed life by a telltale. The burner phone buzzed in Aris's pocket just before he reached the main gates. Another voice came soft, amused. You are early. Good. I prefer men to arrive before panic degrades their judgment. Aris said, let me hear you sell yourself in a moment fast. The vows cautioned you bring me what is mine. Aris stood under gate, Arise rain dripping from his coat them and replied, I brought what I decided you deserve. Another laughed quietly. Your father used to speak to me that way right before he dismounted me. We both know how that ended. Do not inherit his mistakes in fall. The line crackled, and then Yusuf's voice come through. Stand, but Eli did not. Ablu cut him off. Alice closed his eyes for half a heartbeat and opened them colder. If he closes another tooth before I see him, I start burying, assessed, not bragging. Neither stone safted. We played rather than threatened. Good there still in you. Enter through the west by alone the call ended. Arise walked through the west by doors, holding the ledger in a waterproof satchel and a look of controlled surrender. Inside the top pot smelled of engine oil, long soaked into wood, ozone from modern security equipment, and expensive tobacco. Six armed men formed the first visible Lyra. Aris counted likely hidden positions without seeming to count. Balcony, catwalk, control both. Elevated office class, the Hollywood dream car on truck to the maintenance put under the steel plates. Hamza stood near the country Elias with two guards, face unreadable, shoulders heavier than usual. He looked less like a hunter than a man escorting bad news toward its final room. You came, Hamza said. Do not sound surprised. Aris answered. Where is Yusuf? Hamza jerked his chin toward the office mezzanine above them behind reinforced glass. Yusuf sit tied to a chair under a lamp, one eye swollen shit, bald-eyed at the collar. Two men flanked him. He was Curcus, angry, Levi. Iris let himself breathe that much and no more. Then another stepped from the shadows at the far end of the hall in a charcoal overcoat, perfectly dry despite the weather, as if rain itself understood it should not touch him without permission. There another said, extending one hand in a gesture almost paternal, a family renowned paid for by civic vigilance and your inability to trust process. Aris held the structure but did not move yet. You killed my father. The room tightened. Hamza's eyes flicked once toward another side, as though disappointed by the lack of sharp highest rejection in the accusation. Your father died because the mistook moral our outrage for leverage. He found your tunnels. He found the first draft on unnecessary admission. Nether began walk slowly down the Central Exile, his shoes clicking agents all deportal tile. Cities are organisms, areas the feet, the root, the rebuild mean like your father worship, maintenance mean like me. Understand transformations. Under every successful city, there is an invisible marketing deciding who gets to stay, who gets to move it, what gets replied, and what gets allowed the file. I did not invite that. I made it. If Saint Aris hand tightened on the sexual strap you call Clopis efficiency, another stopped the pieces away. I call disordered, wistful. Finally, you think you officials above me are better. At last, I finished what they only dream of profiting from. Yusuf shouted through split lips. Do not listen to him. He wants you angry. Another turned his head slightly toward the mezzanine without looking up. Your brother still believes truth and noise are cousins. Then black to Aris. Give me the ledger. Aris left it the satchel just enough to keep the drive. Another eyes glued. First, think first. No, Aris said. First, Yusuf comes down. Another smile with patient desire, the smile of a man who prefers that other people keep perpetrating negations is symmetrical. I see Leila tagged you the aspect of resistance, but not the mathematics. I have your brother. You have a book. One of this can scream. Alice took one deliberate step sides away, adjusting his angel to the mezzanine control both upon the pit. He said loudly, and you for the hidden mean to hear. Another raised an eyebrow, but under track too old hydraulic latch. If I do not see it open in 5 seconds, everyone here learns whenever the copies go public automatically when I stopped moving. That was I lie. But the best lies in rooms like this are not perfect. They are expensive to test. Another gazy. It is for a breath too long. Then he nodded once to the both still plates grounded as the mountains pit beneath trick to salad open, revealing a deep service cavity lined with cables, tools, and old access leaders. Aris saw what he accepted, a second route leading into the substructure below the depot. Of course, another wood houses a place with the vertical exit. Now, Saint Joseph, Aris said, neither she hid very well, bearing him down. The guards united Yusuf, the began forcing him towards the stairs. Hamza Java dehydrated almost imperceptibly. Aris filled it away as Yusuf candid, lamping but defiant. Neither said softly, you know. Hamza asked me once not to involve the boy. He still believes some lines pressured mean. I told him lines only to each other where to cut. Hamza said nothing. Iris looked at him. Did you ask him not to kill my father too? that landed. Hamza's face flickered with pain. He could not hide quickly, and Yug turned mildly toward him. Shall I answer for you? Hamza's voice came. I know. Then, hello, number. No, then I to Aris without lifting his eyes. I told your father to leave the files alone. He would not, so you delivered him. Aris asked. Hamza said I denied what I could. The words were not denial, were weavers. Aris felt something old and trusted inside him finally break cleanly. Yusuf reached floor level. One guard remained close enough to shoot him if the room titled. Dozed the structure halfway, not toward Nadar but toward the center line near Hamza. Every weapon shifted with the movement. Pick it up. Nadar ordered. Hamza Binet opened the flap, checked the ledger inside, and looked back to Nadar. It's a god, Nadar said. Now kill the brother. Yusuf reached before anyone realized, fully proceeded the common, driving his shoulder into guard beside him. Aris moved in the same instant, firing twice and shoot, taking the guard in the throat. The second, shattering the mezzanine glass in the face of the man above. Leila's first hidden shoot cracked from the catwalk. Shade was dropping a defilement near track 2. Then the dopet exploded into violence. Munawar and his people cut the waste power feed, plunging half the hall into stopping emergency read. One of the old tram cars on the fair truck rolled soundly forward, brakes realized by a sabotage charge its iron block, forcing another mean its sector. Smoke contest burst near the office stairs. Yusuf dove behind a crate while Aris kicked the dead guard pistol, devoured him and shouted, "Can you run?" Yusuf cowed, bowled, grabbed the weapon and snarled, "Can you stop asking stupid things?" Above, Leila moved between beams like a remover with intent, fearing only wind angles. Granted effect. Hamza grabbed the stickle inside of shooting Aris when he had the clean chance that told Aris more than any confusion. Neither winched toward the open pit under track 2, returning to the sub-leaves is exactly as accepted. Aris saw him go and knew the rescue and the hunt were now the same thing. He pulled Yusuf behind the rolling them and shoved him toward the west maintenance door. There is a land outside, then a butcher shop with a blue awning. Our people are there. Yusuf whipped blue from his mouth. Our people move not without answers. You get answers alive. Another burst to splinters from the trimmed siding. Aris returned fear and shoved his brother harder. Yusuf started 1 second longer, hurting the comment but recognizing the truth in it, then limped toward the order. A heavy body blocked his path before he could reach it. One of another man rose from cover with a shouting blast would have taken Yusuf at the waist if Hamza had not slammed the barrel beside the least instant. The shoot obliterated a spot post inside Hamza buried a knife in the mechanism with the some movement and bracket. Go Yusuf stumbled through the door. Aris started Hamza through smoke and certainly why he dimmed. Hamza did not look at him. Because I am tired, he said, and because some debit become heavier than fear. Then I shot the structure back into Aris' hands. He's going blue. If you want the rest of the truth, stop him before reaches the violet. Aris could have shot Hamza there. Part of him wanted to inside it. He ran for the pit. His bullets chivied metal behind him. Leila dropped from the catwalk onto the edge of the opening with impossibly precision and landed in a crouch. Yusuf, she called out. Neither believed the discarded the leader into old service. Dark will the deep wood battle continued above them like whether the tunnel beneath the pit was narrower than Aris remembered and newly reinforced in places with expensive composite brackets. Neither had modern all bones electrical cable run alongside antique brakes motivation sunsets blanket green twist the passed blockade doors stamped with utility logs from shell companies. Harris now knew belonged the same network. This was not just smuggling, he said while moving. He's been fortifying a common route. Leila nodded toward the violet. If he reached the man pressure chamber with demolitions access, he did not finish. He did not need to. They both understood controlled fuller was not concept more anymore. It was a switch. The passage opened into a low chamber when old survey markers had been painted over with never roots cords on the far wall, hanging a city map it from behind major district market not by neighborhoods but by unfutured dependency, water pressure zones, power transfer lobes, dryness load, branch emergency response intervals. Leila studied at it. He is modeled fuller cascades. Aris stepped closer, her clarifying into comprehensions. Cretan tunnels had red rings. Cretan means unstructured with wind shifts. Cretan districts with older housing stock and poorer residents sat on highlights corridors. He can digger limited clopesses and folds that look unrelated. Harris said and you could damage to vacuum blocks size emergency boogers bury evidence roots and drive people out. Laila touched one market zone near the harbor. This one already happened last winter. Old Aris found Krakia customer quarter and then the city entered exhaustion under the new financial district. That one was circle twist. He's moving upscale, he said once he proved the pattern in districts. Nobody defended. Laila's face hardened. Then the end game is the console beneath the map set a terminal still warm from recent US Aris seconded the activity schedules line the field. His blood go cold tonight, he said. He's quite a pressure event for tonight. Before they could pull more data, alarms ride from deeper in the tunnel. Another knew they were one of the roti. Harris yanked the terminal drive and they ran on. The corridor sloped downward through older masonry into West subterranean complex. No modern West admit still excited. Violeted chambers spotted by columns black with age. Water moving quietly under grated walkways. Catch hit dealers of storage and pressures control built by examples that understood the value of hidden reserves. Some sections had been sealed with concrete long ago, others repainted with invasive modern cuts. Fault light now burned along the main walk. At the center stood the bed over the deep reservoir chamber, the violet breathing softly through once the water shifted blue for gammon and a denominator case resting on the rail. Behind him rose a bank of retrofitted pumps and derivation values. Above him, hanging from maintenance chains, were crates of demolition charges already sitting to key brass points. So another called over the ensuing dark. The children found the heart. He looked almost exhalated as if the revelations every and I word. You say it now, Aris, all that would capacity, all that leverage, sleeping beneath men who vote Basildon slogans and Panac Basildon headlines above US. The argue policy down her the city abuse physics. Aris and Leila took over behind oppositive columns. You murdered him for this, Harris shouted. Another spread on one hand. I remembered a man who did not understand that history belongs to those willing to realizing it. Leila fried fast, taking on gunman of the brides. The others answered with suppressing burst that cracked stone. Another ducked behind the pump bank, still speaking. Your father wanted reprise. Nostalgia disguised is virtue. I am offering the city renewal through necessity. You are offering execution through despair. Leila shouted back, neither like You are offering instruction, Throg, stare. Leila shouted back. Another line titles always bearing if fancy as cutely when they do not own the outcome. At least always abandon efficiency as cutely when they do not own the outcome. Aris saw then that the charges were not all armed. Some lights blanket live, others dark. This chamber was part trip, part bluff. Neither needed time to finalize the sequence or the wallet required a manual trigger press and leave. Aris shouted to Leila, and pressure equalization has to be staged. How staged? She called minutes, not seconds. That changed the battle. It meant neither did not win yet. Leila accepted right to draw. Fear Aris moved left using climbing intervals the way he once moved through constructions. Select on shots recorded of Chen and Ryle. One round clipped his upper arm out and numbling, but not enough to stop another stick. The stone by Leila head, showering her with grit. She reached the side stairs to the pump back and began climbing. Neither saw too late. He fired at her and missed once. When the second shot, Hamza appeared from rear maintenance tunnel. No one lies had been watching and remained into the gunman at another side, spoiling the angel. The gun went wide for one astonished instant. All their men, Aris, Leila, Nader, rejected Hamza's choice. Hamza took a bullet in the about man and another through the shoulder before the reached the pump deck, relying her garbage Everest and Shams it agents in their metal housing, sending the detonator gas glitting into the great go. Hamza roared through with Iris to his own conscience to was impossibly to tell. Another drove an elbow into his throat, then a knife up under his ribs with intimate efficiency. Lila vaulted his last step and carried the bride at full speed. Gunfire reported around them. Hamza sagged agents. He pumped housing blood black in the fall light and looked at Aris with sometime like apology strapped words. Neither alleged for the case. Aris hit him mid body. Both men slammed into the grating and rolled the real as the violet blue breath deeper, louder now, as if real underground had opened one eye. The fight above black water, old enough to remember, impresses. There is a point in every long hearted where the body stopped crying. History and carries only machine elbow breath, leverage, impact, edge. Aris felt all the Aris between himself and another coldness into grip and bond. The older man was not stauncher, but the was participating in ruthless economic. He aimed for throughout window plans and weapon. Aris aimed for first. He had imagined under his anger for too many nights. The real shock beneath them, somewhere to the left, Leila shoot the control bank. Hamza collapsed beside the pump, gazing on hand, futilely pressing his wound side as blood threaded through the grate. Another had booted Aris and to burst his lip, then went for the pistol at Aris' built. Aris tripped the wrist, drove his forehead into another's nose, and for 1 second saw not a mastermind but an agonic predator inspired by the possibility of consequence. You built this on graves. Aris hissed another separate bolt and lied through it. Everything is built on graves. I simply refuse to look away. Leila recrossed at the control panel and began reading its hybrid nonsense of modern interface patched into old pressure system. And she shouted he started as sequence, but he did not finish it. Their diversion gates are made swakely. Aris twisted neither arm until the soldier popped and pulling him toward the spot. Coleman, you can stop it. Leila's fingers moved over, switched the fuzzy. Not from here alone. The old manual values are still engaged. Below the west gallery, another half candling, blood running from his nose and mouth, smiled through pain. That is the elegant part, he said. He pulled redundancy. Aris turned just as another kicked the drug counter cast over the open grating section near the chain housing. This case skidded bounded once and dropped through his survey gap onto a narrow ledge 2 meters below. Blanking read Leila sure if that lines arm fully. Even if I stop the pressure cascade, he can still share the spot because as looked over the side the ledge was barely wide enough for a means boards and slick with condensation below it. The water stayed in slow, hungry circles. Then I get it, Leila said. If you fall, you are gone. Aris answered without looking at her. Then do not let me fall. He's saving over the real. The lazy took his fight with the gritty sleep that nearly cost him both hands. Above the chamber seemed wider and colder. Vice each hung in for gamins. Neither moved again on the deck, leaping now reaching for a dropped weapon. Leila feared climbing the concrete beside him and forcing him back. Aris edged sideways toward the cage, both feeling for perches on stone shifted by countries. Blew him the violet exhaled through hidden events, and the water responded with the deep organized note that made the bounce remember for older than life. He got one hand on the case, saw the timer intelligent polishing and realized it not yet in final arm state. Good, that meant neither still ended single or secondary contact above. Leila shouted the vast manual values are opened. He set them the fall. Safe Aris. He led the case to his chest and looked across the chamber. The west gallery sat behind the main deck, reachable only by a narrow services bride half broken and partly collapsed into dark water. You will have to go, he yelled. Leila glanced at the panel, then at another, then at the bride. He'll get past me to the upper route, then do not let him. Aris shouted. He flashed him a furious look that was in another life, almost a large, and ran. Another rose with the compact pistol in hand and turned toward the upper star. Hamza dying and half contiguous catch Nadar's ankle with balled, sleek fingers. The movement was weak, but enough to delay a second. Nadar looked down with pure contempt. You were always overestimated loyalty, he said, and shoot Hamza through the chest. His sound cracked through the violet like a givel. Aris saw it from blue and felt no clean emotions, only the tremble visage of men who spend half their life serving it wrong, then thing, and the other half discovering it would too late. Leila met Nader at the foot of the upper stair and felt wish he ducked behind the pump housing. She closed distance inside of retreating, using the metal banks as cover while trying to keep one eye on the control sequence above them. Red lights cast across the old value indicators below. Iris degraded himself back along the ledge with the case pressed to his ribs. When he reached the real leader, the tremor ran through the chamber, not an explosion, a pressure shift, water surged agents lower gates with the sound like agents breath taken in pain. When the west gallery Leila reached the manual vehicle resembles a row of iron vehicles than her trousseau original to the old reservoir design and now modified with motor assist that had jumped halfway. She lost her gun and put both hands to the nearest vehicle. It did not move. Aris, she shouted, they are seized. Aris held himself back onto the main deck, slammed the cage against a stone pillar to damage its tiger housing, and ran to help another USD. The opening, he emerged from behind cover and fired the shoot garage. Lally side spinning her into the lying Iris fired back, driving another behind the upper star again, and then reached the first vehicle together. He hand Leila Habit arms scrambled the value, turned a quarter. Some ever deep blue water rerouted with the concussion that shook dust from the ceiling. Aris, two more. Aris sighed through clenched teeth. Leila's hands come away bloody from her ribs, but she set it to next vehicle anyway. Pain sharpened her face into something almost luminous. You own me, she muttered. Get in line, he answered. While they worked the values, another climbed toward the stop gallery of donning the panel only because he knew the chamber itself had become VPN and knew once the first sequence destabilized, he needed only access to the city center flower line. Aris realized it is the sound. Second will broke loss. He is not running, he said. He is moving to the next treasure route. Leila noted grimly. Financial distrust or man civic pumps depends what wants people to think happened. They connected the third value. The belt is rover dropped half a register pressure normalized in one set of lines, but wrong lights still flashed along the upper manifold. Not any Aris grabbed the damaged case, parried its panel losses, and saw various channels branch toward remove it. Towards there are linked charge outside this room, he said at last. Fear, Leila cursed softly. Then this chamber was the first demon. A slow clap hood from above. Another stood in the upper catwalk near the tunnel leading toward the central network. Cotton face security of men who believe scale will absolutely motivate. Very good, he called down. You saved a chamber. Prep his Ivana district. Shall I congratulate you before the city center starts drowning in a slurry and panic? He lifted a small backup transmitter from his pocket. Red News, Iris, you teased me the respect. Engineer Aris' answer was remediative gunfire, but the angel was wrong at another windshield back into the tunnel before the second shoot. Leila took a step after him and nearly called past Aris, catched her blue elbow. You were hit. I noticed you were needed stopping the started each other, both breathing hard, both calculating what remained. Then a voice crackled from the Buenos Expresses. Minerva Anna and forced into the Iris collar before the doped report. The old woman said. Iris pressed the mic. Others moving toward the center. Treasures through the upper civics line. The violet sequence is partly halted, but linked charge remained sticky. Then Munavarana above ground reports are incoming to expand water pressure alarms near the banking quarter. One traffic tunnel closed. Pan is not public yet. Leila grabbed the mic. Can your people is lot the connections not all maneuver and said too many salad routes, but I can rise old pump works about two retired line supervisors. If Camel notes are right, the center treasures coverage under Yani Magdan station. Aris and Leila exchanged a look. Yani Median, the new show pace interchange beneath the Funkishal district bullet stop and foundations. Everyone perceived as visionary ruse. The clambered from the violet chamber through the remittance spent that sufficed their blocks from the river above them. Down Gary had a long passed into a bruised afternoon, the sky low with rain. The streets louder than they deserved to be. Ambulance we lied toward the depot. Battle aftermath. News vans already hovered near Paris. Nobody on the sidewalks. The real emergency was still below. Yusuf was waiting in the butcher's shop safe room with a spilled bro stretched in crooked black thread and a rage that had hardened into purpose. When Aris entered Yusuf's store too fast and saved you finished, he snapped, "You told me to lie. I did. Agents my better judgment." Aris checked him for fresh blood. "Can you still stand?" "You can answer one direct question." Yusuf shoot back. "Did neither kill Baba?" Silence answered first. Yusuf looked from Aris to Leila's bandaged side. The survey maps spread on the cutting tables and understood before words arrived. Some graphs are unhated, some are donut. He sat down slowly and upturned crate and covered his mouth with one hand. "All this time," he said, "do not anyone all this time. I told mother the report was the only thing we had." Harry said quietly, "It was the only thing we were allowed." Yusuf looked up, eyes bright with something more dangerous than trees. "Then I am done asking permissions." Leila play but steady led out the terminal. A driver contents we held the butcher shop on the bloated doors and Munavarana runners moved is and out of with updates. The city center treasure routes convey great beneath Yani median stations and adjacent store water regulation hub, a massive control cluster. No single private entity should ever have been allowed to modify, yet another shell companies had touched almost every subcontract across 6 years. If pushed constructions, it did not bullet one bomb. Leila said he bullet deep dependency into the new heart of the city. When the cracked butcher blocked the she arranged copied maps into already pictures all customers, fight cats, metro service, tunnels, utility, jealousy, fold bypasses. If he opens the wrong gates and destabilizes the loud under the blacking toward through, the official story becomes unforeseen. Subsoil fueler during heavy weather. Markets panic. Evacuation start. Redevelopment powers gets signed by midnight. Yusuf stand at the pump maps with the policeman's downing hero and your emergency order will be directed by the same people who caused it. Harris nodded. Controlled fuller the butcher who had lost a son in last year's unforeseeable warehouse for sit down a tray of tea, the shaking hands. Then stop controlling it, he said, not philosophy, no anthropic, just the impossible demand ordinary people always make. If the few still stand, when system show the teeth. Night approached, the city lights come on one district at a time, and With each distance, the illustration of normality depended office workers harder under the umbrellas. Tangerines took surprise by shop windows, restaurants filled, traffic thickened around Yani Maidan because contradicted ever admit danger until danger occurs. A police cordon and a headline Harris changed into a dark municipal work jacket, sullying a coil of line over one shoulder and loaded tools inside of extra ammunition. Where possibly this part he now would not be won by shooting Lolela stupid fresh Gizi over her wound and took it the backup driving to an inner pocket. Yusuf cleaned a confiscated pistol with hands steadied and his breathing mother, he asked without looking up. I sounded moved. Two women from Anna's network are with her. Yusuf nodded once. Good, then if I die, that last. She courts only one soon at time. Aris almost object the word, but the night had outgrown superstitions. Munawwarana arrived in a person before the left, wrapped in a dark coat, crying an old key ring, heavy enough to sound like memory. Yani Maiden was bullet over the generations of maps. She said the current city has one reason, the dead have another use, both of hill outpiece you. She placed the keys in Aris' palm and looked from him to Leila to Yusuf. He is the last green window after tonight. The story belongs either to the man who planned it or to the ones who served it. Decide which kind you area. Yani Maiden Station was designed to impress investors and compounders in equal measure. Above ground, it was glass, steel, and rapid movement. A civic cathedral to Velacti with digital billboards and Woolstone concusers, where every reflection seemed to promise modern order. Underground, beneath the escalators, both Q6 and mirrored transfer hills and stations discounted through strata of older work on architecture displayed in the permission readings, new tunnels intersected with Ottoman water corridors, Republic area service shafts, wartime shelters, and fight procedure shield unsealed sealed again. Engineers call it a layered site. Politicals call it a Trump. Men like neither call it an opportunity. By the time Aris, Leila, and Yusuf entered through a utility gate of a loading tunnel, the public levels above were still functioning. Trains avoid unsoundment repeated in claim. Electronic tunes, shoes, horrid accords platform somewhere above them. A violinist played four corners in a tunnel where nobody suspected the real orchestra thinning beneath their feet was made of perfection lines, demolition charge, and grade using Munawwarana skis and camel Yelani instructions. They bypassed the first two score maintenance doors and reached a vertical shaft leading below the office station sub basement. The shaft was sweated mineral water cable rise wrapped with the rhythm of trains overhead. Halfway down, Yusuf mattered how many atoms did safety inspectors sighing off on this site without seeing any effect. Aris answered, if they were honest, not once. If they were paid countless. Leila added, the city loves a salad. Is impotence at the bottom of the shaft. They found the first body of the night lover war. Stations, electric coins, zips died and uncauses beside already panel note died only because Vera left him and needed silence more than murder at that moment. Yusuf checked his pulse alive. Leave him, Aris said. We cannot drag him. Yusuf's mouth tightened, but the nodded this away. What the underground diamond of decent men at dramatic with the lives. They reached this storm regulation hub through Gaha, followed courses gallery and found immediately advance of nether progress to control cabinets had been forced open and grade on by bypass line already flashed active. Maintenance for main lie died against the wall. Throughout cute ID badge still hanging from his neck like an administrative jockey. Leila scanned the cabinet screens. He's splitting the event, she said. Not one dramatic collapse, smaller fullers in sequence, and it took overload response teams. Tiger evacuations hit the curvy movement. Aris followed the route map. Where does the sequence and Leila stopped their nodes than one larger central marker. Her civics pressures chamber under the skewer if he stabilizes there if after the surrounding neck he controls both the damage and the fix. Yusuf looked between them. Meaning, Aris answered, meaning the man wants to become unresponsible. That finally sounded like the right scale of the crime. Not money alone, not revenge, serving through crisis. A metallic retally came from the fear many tenants run. Aris cleared his light. Their figures moved in the dark, talking in clipped tones, not municipal staff, not Minavarana's people, neither clean up crew. Aris wanted until the coasted the shell above water, then dropped the first with the hammer stick to the throat instead of a shoot. You shoot the second before the cold yell. Leila stabbed the third in the kidney and leveled him quietly. The man shouted and tried to speak. Aris pressed him against the wall. How many blew the man journeyed blood at him. And you, Aris, drove a thumb into the wounded edge until the grain fell. Where is another central chamber? The man disappeared with the deputy mayor. Yusuf face changed tinsel his ear. The man laughed witty. Where else would be men like him and never miss their own distance? Then he died before Aris could not ask more. Leila wiped her blood on his coat, so the public face came to witness the private work. Yusuf's voice was tight and disbelief and vindications. If we catch him there, we catch none of them. If the station starting feeling round us as it cut in, first we interpret the sequence, then we expose, we reverse tell, rethink the split task with the efficiency the how people to tried for ago. Aris moved along the old value manifolds, physically restoring manual overrides where neither curves had jumped them. Leila worked the hybrid controller in stolen fellow sounds that from equal loads shifted use of using police frequency and the station emergency hands feed that carefully strapped information to the one trusted dispatchers the still believed might move the trains without letting the compromised chain of commit the controller there's a structural irregularity in sub basement violations and he said closing choosing laughing that might request platform without tragedy, a political panic, or a call to the wrong supervisors. No, do not log to the features comment yet pushed interest safety first to it now. He listened sober softly then reported his badge number like man stacking the last of his credibility above them. The announcement town changed terrains would be held to an operational issues good not any but good. Then the first secondary blast hit their levels is the vision not mishaps. It was what exactly sized the floor under the thoughted dust remained from the ceiling and the station lights dipped somewhere above. Computers screamed as escalators halted. Leila looked at the screen. He treasured a feeder clubs near the retail convictions that drive even toward the secure exit. Harris understood at one into the zone he was colored. Yusuf slammed the first against the wall. His hardening cleavage another blast farther north. Another the sequence had begun. This was another talent not destruction for speculators, but destruction was graphic. Iris grabbed the tall case and said, "No more splitting. We go to the central chamber now." Leila pointed to the open cabinet. "If we leave these, he can still food the lower approach behind us." Iris replied for the man really courage and crushed it under his boat speaker's part, then let him do it manually. Yusuf checked his magazine. He won't like that. That, I said, is the first encouraging thing all night. The approach to the six pressure chamber run beneath the west part of the station and the behind it under the paved criminal square where state criminals protest and corporate festivals all profit their claims on public life. The tunnel arrived through a segment of a reinforced concrete before breaking into older stone lined with newly installed sensors. More bodies appeared there, some others, some many people, workers, one retired pump engineer from Manavaranas who had come in work over reals and died with the awareness still in hand. Aris briefly recognized the calloused fingers of a man who had spent a life making invisible system behave and stood again without speaking. Leila touched the dead man's shoulder as she passed. There was no time for mourning, only for accurate memory. At the final security blockade, the found Hamza's last gift wedged into the mechanism was a flattened bracelet. As recognized instantly, Hamza had carried it for 20 years. His cheap thing always repaired instead of replacing the jump. Keep it looking blots from fully setting the come through her before he died. Harry said Yusuf looked at the lighter then at his brother face friend. Something Boris Aris replied and forced the bulkhead bind its chamber opened like the room of a conversation built by paranoid genius missive cylindrical pressures useless rose between stones piers walkways crossed over curing channel control banks old and new gold along the perimeter at the center and a reside of which platform stood another deputy mayor Tansel and six armed men. Cables ran from the platform to the demolition nodes set into sport breaks and sluice gates on a side screen live city feeds showed covered movement above ground as emergency services redirected people around localized incidents nobody yet understood were connected. Tansel looked smaller in person than billboards, almost ordinary. His expensive coat and affected conscience already wilting under subterranean humidity. Neither looked alive in a nave away if stripping off the last layers finally threw him peace. There he is, Nader said when he saw Aris' son who couldn't stop it, ratting inherited pain like